Ukraine is ready to end the war. Learn what the terms are in our daily episode. Russian losses in Ukraine, 600,000 and counting, and that may hinder recruitment, Pentagon says. And a cherry on top for you, interview on UATV English. So, good afternoon. These topics in more detail in our daily episode with me, Henry Keane, and UATV English, doing our best as usual to bring the hard truth in easy terms for you out there, for the whole free world, directly from Ukraine. Yes, Ukraine is preparing a peace plan to present to Russia ahead of the second peace summit. This peace plan is based on the peace formula. At the same time, Kyiv has also prepared a victory plan. This plan is designed to compel Russia to achieve a diplomatic end to the war, and its implementation will strengthen Ukraine's position. The peace framework document, which outlines the detailed conditions for a just end to the war, will be ready by November. This was stated by President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky in Dubrovnik during his speech at the third Ukraine Southeast European Summit. So, what are the victory, peace plan, and what is the difference, if any, between them exactly? In most easy terms, the answer to this question has been put by the president himself. Like that. For us, he said, this is a victory plan. For each of your countries, it's a plan for reliable stability. When the plan is fully implemented, Russia will lose the ability to threaten us, to threaten Europe, the president noted.
We understand that a new schedule may be prepared in the near future. It is best to coordinate at Ramstein with all our partners the realization of the victory plan and its concrete details, especially the military points that are going to strengthen us at the front line.
Russia always was and is now avoiding honest diplomacy, which is why Ukraine has developed an action plan that can bridge the gap between the current situation and the peaceful peace summit. You know what is most funny and lovely in all this? Russia, in the long grey face of Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, is prepared to end the war in Ukraine in exchange for the lifting of all Western sanctions imposed on the country, said he himself, Comrade Lavrov, in an interview to Newsweek. Lavrov, of course, reiterated Russian dictator Putin's additional demands, which include the complete withdrawal of Ukrainian forces from the Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia and Kherson regions, and recognition of these territories as part of Russia, of course. Putin demands also call for Ukraine to solidify its status as a non-aligned, nuclear-free state, along with its demilitarization and denazification, whatever that means.
Kyiv responded to this statement with a military invasion of the Kursk region on August 6. Ukraine's Western allies, particularly the United States and NATO countries, are seeking to deliver a strategic defeat in Russia. Under these circumstances, Russia has no choice but to continue our special operation until the threats posed by Ukraine are eliminated. Sergei Lavrov, Russian Foreign Minister.
The very Russian Foreign Minister also commented on ongoing discussions regarding Ukraine's use of Western supply long-range missiles on Russian territory, saying that, I quote, playing with fire can lead to dangerous consequences, end of quote. Oh, what a great observation, is it not? Couldn't agree more. I'm sure those 600,000 Russians killed in Ukraine would have joined me in agreeing this very statement if only they could. In easy terms, Lavrov is actually saying Russia is ready to end the war that it has started on its own terms. Wow. Well, let us wait for the meeting in Ramstein for a month, which was supposed to take place on October 12th and has been postponed, and a new date is being determined right now. So, however, one thing is absolutely clear now. If Comrade Lavrov mentions them in the first place, Western sanctions are actually working. Russia has sustained over 600,000 casualties since the start of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Defense News says, citing Pentagon officials. The figure comes at a particularly deadly stage of the war for Russian troops. According to reports from the General Staff of Ukraine's Armed Forces, September was the second most lethal month for Russian soldiers since February 2022. The accelerating losses are disproportionate with Moscow's territorial gains, a senior U.S. defense official said. Russian losses, again both killed and wounded in action in just the first year of the war, exceeded the total of all Soviet losses in any conflict since World War II combined, the official said. The mounting casualties at the front may hinder the Russian military's recruitment efforts, the official also said, and putting pressure on the Kremlin to initiate a new wave of mobilization.
September was the deadliest month for Russia's army since the start of the war in Ukraine, British military intelligence said on Monday. The average casualty rate for the Russian army rose to 1,271 soldiers killed or badly injured per day. Previously, the highest daily casualty rate for Russian soldiers had been in May, with an average of 1,262 soldiers killed or injured, from the Telegraph publication.
Putin has avoided announcing a larger mobilization campaign due to its huge unpopularity in Russia, of course. The military has instead resorted to recruiting convicts, mobilizing young, untrained conscripts, 19, 20 years old boys, actually, and luring other Russians with higher pay and benefits. Post-mortem, very possibly. Russia may also receive troop support from North Korea, which might begin deploying regular units to Ukraine, South Korea's defense minister said recently. As casualties continue to climb, Russian forces continue to press on its eastern Ukraine, focusing on the sites of Pokrovsk and Toretsk and Donetsk Oblast. Ukrainian troops indeed withdrew from the embattled city of Vuhledar amid a heavy Russian assault. The Ukrainian military reported that Russia tried to capture the town at any cost, by sending reserves to attack its flanks, exhausting defending Ukrainian units. And it costed Russia's elite marine units 4 times higher losses during a year of fighting near Vuhledar than during 10 years of the Second Chechen War, the BBC News Russia reports. Moscow would surely continue relying on superior numbers to force incremental gains despite the body count. Why, would you ask? It is because the idea that can never be understood in the West, but I will try to put it in plain and easy terms for you right now. Russia is a terrorist state with a terrorist way of social thinking, as simple as that. Even Russian life means nothing for the Kremlin. The Kremlin will bury millions if needed, so only its indicted Tsar can save his face. And not only Russian lives are in danger, actually. As Lavrov said clearly at the UN recently, it is impossible and dangerous to try to win over nuclear power, like Russia is, which translates directly into this. We, in Russia, will burn the whole world so only to get what we want. Now tell me, ain't that terror? Lina Slinkevičius tonight is at UATV English studio, ex-Foreign Minister of Lithuania. Lina, hello.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, sure. The pleasure is all mine. Let's go straight forward. Ukraine's prospects in NATO and obstacles on the way to it, as is my first question. But we have been discussing the topic numerous times. But I'm going to ask a question in a straightforward manner. Is NATO too weak to accept Ukraine, do you think?
NATO too cautious, and at the same time, you understand that we have to take decisions in NATO by consensus. So we need agreement of literally all members, and it's not so easy task. But at the same time, we have to take on board major players, and I would start from United States, which is also, as you can remember, not terribly enthusiastic on this issue. So a lot of things to be done, but it's important also for Ukraine not to deprive from this route, and also not to choose anything alternative, because anything alternative doesn't mean guarantees. And membership is the only option, I believe, what Ukraine have to choose, but definitely up to Ukrainians to make a choice.
Right. So this is nothing. It has nothing to do with the weakness of NATO. It's more like a consensus. Am I right?
NATO is such a sophisticated body that any decision should be taken by consensus, and that explains a lot. And also, when we're trying to discuss sometimes what NATO can do, what kind of support NATO can provide, it has to do with the nations, first of all. Nations can provide support, nations can provide military assistance. NATO collectively cannot do much. So we should also manage expectations with regard to the NATO. That's how it explains the situation.
All right. Thank you so very much for this answer. Talking about expectations. Expectations from the next Ramstein. Well, Putin is a dictator, so he dictates his will to everyone who does not have a will on his own. So whatever the expectations from the Ramstein are, what actually you, Mr. Linkevicius, would have expect from Ramstein to happen in terms of Ukraine?
Again, when we're talking about Ramstein as a format to take decisions, not much to be expected. Exactly. I would like to expect something by that time, which time is also a moving target. And as we all know, the meeting or summit rather has been postponed. And this is quite unhelpful because time is very important, a factor. And what we would expect by that time, definitely to speed up decision-making process. First of all, to discuss, and not just to discuss, but also to make decisions to lift sanctions, lift those so-called red lines. Also to allow long-range weapons to be used by Ukrainian armed forces. It has to do with ATACMS, to Scalp, Storm Shadow systems, to accelerate also delivery of F-16s. And that's exactly what I would expect by that time. Right. And as we all know, the date of the summit is not yet fixed, but ministers of defense, they have to meet. There should be a meeting. It was already announced this month also. So time is going and time is not waiting. So we have to take a decision.
Indeed. And the war is going on just together. I don't know if the directions of time going in terms of Ukraine. I've been recently hearing many voices, too much maybe voices, too many of them, that were speaking about that the war can be actually ended or at least paused or put it on hold. The war is paused. Let's speculate on that. So tomorrow, the ceasefire is on. So Russia will use this respite to rearm, no doubt about that. Will the West be helping Ukraine to rearm during that ceasefire? Or international institutions more likely will be returning, to usual uselessness, expressing like deepest concerns and other impotent rubbish, if you ask me. So, yeah.
I'm not terribly enthusiastic about this pause, as you said, because it has to do exactly when we are talking about this pause or break or whatever you can call it tomorrow or day after tomorrow. The situation is not helpful, not good, and definitely has nothing to do with the peace. So what we have to understand that if some kind of negotiations could take place, definitely they could place Ukraine in a stronger position than it is now. So that means it's directly related with the supply of the weapons and the issues and questions and decisions I just talked before. So this is important. And also, despite the skepticism and slow decision-making process, especially from the side of the United States, I still have some hope, so to say, that President Biden is accomplishing his term in office, and it has to do with his political legacy. It has to do with something substantial to be decided by the end of his term, and this trip to Germany. Even if it's postponed, but it's not cancelled, by the way, it will take place anyway. It will be very important because it will be probably the last trip to Europe by current president. So everything speaks about the necessity or possibility to expect something substantial to be decided or to be announced. So that's why I believe this is really important and that it's not going to happen.
Thank you so very much. Amen to that. Talking about the forest, I have little something here. This is a lightsaber from Star Wars. Yeah, that is a very secret and very powerful weapon. It has been made in China. My question is if this is a weapon that has been made in China, why do I have to ask China's permission to put it on purpose, to use it on purpose? This is what's happening actually with all these long-range weapons that we have but we cannot use. Why do we have to? I mean, I know there is a reason. I just want to know it.
No, there are rules, especially when you're getting weapons, especially weapons from some country. Definitely, that country, this end user certificate usually, and usually if you're using them yourself, it's okay. But if you're trying to use them somehow in another way, you have to get permission. And the bad side of this story is that not just ATACMS as purely American weapons should be given a permission by the United States, but even weapons like, let's say, Storm Shadow or Scalp also should be kind of consented by the United States. Even when we're talking about delivery of jets, fighters, not just F-16s, but let's say the Gripens by Sweden. Also, a lot of systems are produced by United States, and also they need consent by United States. And so that's why so-called F-16 coalition was created by countries which are not delivering F-16 precisely, but they are part of that coalition, part of collective thinking, part of the decision-making process, which, as we just discussed recently, this decision-making process, speed of this decision-making process takes too much time, and that's not acceptable. So I definitely believe that by the meeting of, by the summit, or by at least the meeting of these defense ministers, must be some movement in this regard, because otherwise to talk about anything like negotiations in this situation from these positions we do have now, it will not be profitable for Ukraine. It will not be fair approach to the situation. And I hope, and I not just hope, but I know that our colleagues in the West also know that. So that means it's also yet another argument why we should speed up ourselves in this regard.
Again, I couldn't agree more. And thank you so very much mentioning time. And may the force be with you. Thank you so much for your time and expertise.
Appreciate. Разом до перемоги.
До перемоги, разом до перемоги. Героям слава. Дякую. This is me and my lightsaber, and we say so thank you so very much for your voice and for your effort for Ukraine. Please stay with us at UATV English. We're doing our best to deliver the good and the best news for you out there, for the whole free world, as usual. It was me, Henry Keane, and UATV English. Stay safe and tune for more.